Welcome to Distance Learning. I am Ms. Valladares, and in this video, I'm going to give you a step-by-step demonstration on how to draw eyes. Now, some of you I want you to focus on how we'll be implementing the elements of art, and those are line, shape, space, value, and texture. And with that being said, let's get this drawing started. Drawing paper, it could be notebook paper, whatever you have available, and a pencil. Make sure that it has an eraser. Well, you will need to take into consideration the elements, line, shape, and the spaces between all these lines and shapes of the iris, the pupil, and the eyebrow as well. You'll need to begin with a horizontal line, and you can see this on my example already. So that's going to help you with spacing out the top part and the bottom part of the eye. Okay, so on your page, draw one horizontal line. So horizontal line. Once you have established that, then you'll be working on the upper space of the eye. The top part of the eye has a bigger space compared to the bottom part of the eye on here. Start with a diagonal line, slope, and then we curve the top part of the eyelid of the eye, and then we end with a smaller, shorter slope. Okay, for the bottom part, you mirror the exact same direction of the line that you created on top. Once you have that established, what you will work on next is the iris, okay, which is the colored area of the eye. Okay, so we'll start with a curve, and I will be drawing a circle because that's the shape of the iris, a circle. Because if you really think about it, the eyeball is a sphere, but when we draw it, of course, it's a circle. The eyeball is located inside of our eye socket under our eyelid, so then part of it is hidden behind the eyelid. So that is why we add just part of the eye here, but you want to create dashes up here just so you keep that in mind. So, all right, once we have created that, then you'll create a circle, smaller circle in the center. Think of it as a donut shape now, right? And that's going to be your pupil. And in the pupil, which is this right here, the darkest area of the eye, you have two little glare areas that you'll draw little circles in. One inside of the pupil and right above it on the outer side. Okay. Once you have that established, you can erase all these extra lines that you no longer need. You no longer need that horizontal line. Let's erase that. Now you'll want to work on the eyelid and then shaping, blocking in the shape of the eyebrow. Okay, without any detail, just like we have here the eye, we only have an outline. So there's a curve up here, diagonal for the eyelid. Okay, and then if you look at here, what's the space between the eyelid and the eyebrow? And if I were to draw a diagonal line, the eyebrow from here to there, my eyebrow should end here. And then from here to that one right there, that's the space, right? It's kind of like a rectangle and like a long triangle here. So when you're looking at spaces between things in your drawing, break things down to what directional line, diagonal, curve line, spaces, break it down to shapes, and that helps you break things down. Okay, from here to here. Of course, eyebrows are not just a very thin line, so I'm going to thicken that. I know some ladies who actually draw their eyebrows when they're creating makeup. All right, so there you go. I have the basic shape of my eyebrow. Now from here, what you'll need to work on next is applying value, shading your drawing, because it's a regular pencil and it won't have the same effect as the graphite pencils, and that's just fine. Okay, so we want to start with the darkest area, which is the pupil. Make sure you shade around that little glare, don't cover it. Add layers. After you shade in that pupil, again, keep in mind it should be the darkest area. Nothing around the eye should be as dark as that. So after, I like to draw in some zigzag lines to create like a sun or sunflower shape around the the pupil. Right, and then you shade that in just a little bit. Make sure that it is lighter than the pupil. Shade that in. When you shade, make sure you shade very close together. It would just make your drawing look neater. There'll be more unity. Even though it might be a practice, you'll be more content with your results if you shade very close together. Okay, after that, then I add a little bit more pressure and I dab some of those points on the edges of that area that I just shaded, just a few points here and there. And then we're going to move on to the iris, which is the edge of these lines, these curved lines that hold the color of your eye. Some of you may have colored eyes, so the color of your eye, if you ever get around to shading it, will be lighter. But for practice purposes here, I do want you to add some pressure and make the edge of that iris a little darker, and then fade into the center of the eye. Okay, so I also do like to shade in this direction towards the center because it is a circle. I do change the direction of my pencil as I'm shading it all around, kind of like when we shaded the sphere, remember that? So shade very close together and coat to fill it in. Okay, and then let's do another layer and let's fade. Avoid the areas with the glare. And the area that's right below the eyelid, that you definitely should have a darker shade on there because it has a shade, because it is placed right under the eyebrow. So that should have a little shadow on there. Definitely. Okay. So now shade from the edge towards the center, a fade, darker on the edge, lighter in the center. Darker on the edge, you loosen up the pressure and less layers towards the center. So I'm adding a little bit more pressure on the edge, and I loosen up my pressure as I move towards the center. Add more layers, and I add less layers as I'm going towards the center. I know I'm repeating myself, but sometimes we do need to keep that in mind because we worry about filling in and we forget it's supposed to be a fade. So there you go. Now you can see the eye. There's a glare on that. Looks good. Okay, so now that you shaded in your iris and the pupil, all right, everything should be shaded. The only white areas that you should have are the glare, the two little circles with the glare on there. Okay, so now that we're shading, applying value, everything on our outline should be faded. You should have some sort of shade. The lines that you have should just not be placed there without no shade. Okay, your lines somehow should fade, and you're playing around with different degrees of grays, dark grays, mid light grays, and very, very light grays. So the next step would be the white areas of the eye. It shouldn't just be completely flat white. These lines down here, you do want them to have a bit of a fade. So you're working with a very light gray fade on there. So my lines, there's a line, but there's a slight fade. Since we apply value, we're working with chiaroscuro, lights and shadows. So there should be very light shadows. Very light fade. If you were using your graphite pencils, you would be using an H pencil for this area. Now here in this corner, we have a tear duct, which is the area that holds your tears. And this area usually is like a dark pink or pink color, so that definitely should be darker gray than the sides of the eyeball. So you want to shade that just a little bit darker, definitely, than what you have already. Okay, so then we do the same with these lines for the eyelid, just a slight fade. Don't leave it flat. Slight fade. I'm gonna fade here since it's on the top of the eyelid towards the eyebrow, maybe halfway I'll fade. Very light. Now moving on to the eyebrow. You want to block in the eyebrow with a shade of a gray. Shade very close together. You want to block in with a very light gray or mid gray. because when we start layering the texture of the eyebrow, you shouldn't have any white on the eyebrow, really, or much at all. Okay, so once you have that shaded, so what you're going to work on next is the eyelashes and the eyebrow, the texture of the eyebrow, texture for the eyelashes. And for those, you'll need to apply line and also a technique called, or known as, flicking. You add pressure, but then you lift, and when you bring up that pencil, you end up creating a thin line based on what you started off with. So you lift, thin line. So you're working with line and also direction of line. Like here with the check mark, it's diagonal, but you're gonna have to work with different curves, direction of curve, since we'll be working with the eye, right? And based on where the eyelashes are, there's a different direction. So if it's in the middle, it should be curved up. If it's moving towards this right side or left side, right, then the direction of the curve changes. Not only the direction, but also the size of the curve. It does take a while to get the hang of this. So if you don't get it right the first time, it's okay. Just keep practicing. So we don't want too many, like Hero was practicing. We want less than that. So, and there's even less of eyelashes at the bottom of the eye. Those down there are really scattered. There's a lot more space between them. See that? And if you've noticed, and if you haven't, go ahead and take a look at yourself in the mirror and look at, okay, how many eyelashes do I have at the bottom compared to the top part of mine? Okay, and it does make a difference too. Like here for this practice, I make the eyelashes short. There's some females or males that have short eyelashes, and there are some females or males that have a little bit more of a longer eyelash, or their eyelashes are even have more of a curve than others. Okay, so practice. If you already know how to do this, and or if you're already confident, go ahead and start creating the curve for the eyelashes. Have a little bit more space on there, of course, and shorter as it gets further away. Make the center a little bit taller, and then curve this way, and then less, right? I think this one needs a little bit more work. Okay, so there you go. If you want to add more, you can. The bottom part of the eye, that's where you need the smaller, more spaced out version of the eyelashes. You do want to draw an extra line though down here, because you can kind of see a little bit of the bottom part of the eyelid, of the bottom part of the eye, I'm sorry. And space those out. Okay, so there you have it. You have your eyelashes on there. So now the eyebrow, for that, since you're already blocked in with a shade of a gray, what you need to do next is use the same technique, flicking, but you should have a shorter range of pencil strokes on there. So I do suggest that you look at the direction of the eyebrows. For now, we'll work on the same example together. Since the example that I was looking at, it had some eyebrow hairs kind of on top in this direction, diagonal towards the bottom. And when you draw eyebrows or draw hair in general, you always want to work with the hair that's further to the back, and then start building towards the area of the hair, the texture that's closer to you. Okay, that way the front layers are covering the ones in the back, just like how it would be if you're looking at someone, right? So I'm going to draw some diagonal lines here. I'm going to repeat it. I'm stroking down and lift, down and lift, down and lift. It's the flicking technique as well, but you're lifting to thin out those lines. Okay, and then I'm going to work on flicking. Try and keep it in the same area where you blocked in the eyebrow. So if you go over it, it's okay. You can always go back and erase. Remember, we're practicing, so trial and error, you know, it's just part of the process of getting better. So flicking, I do one layer to fill in that space with those lines. After this, what you want to do is layer some more. This time I'm going to add more pressure to it. My pressure at the bottom. Okay, and there you have it. You have the drawing of the eye. If you don't get it right the first time, try again.